Hey, I'm Cromwell, and today I don't have a tutorial for you, but I figured that in between publishing tutorials, it might be useful to some of you if I talked about some of the news that's occurring in the 3D and game design world as far as the tools and companies that are providing tools for us. And so today I noticed on social media there was quite a bit of buzz around the fact that Adobe had acquired Allegorithmic. So Allegorithmic, of course, is the company that creates the Substance suite of Substance Designer and Substance Painter, which a lot of game developers are familiar with. And you can see here on the Allegorithmic website that they're being branded now as an Adobe company. And Allegorithmic is joining the Adobe family. So this is, of course, rightfully sparked quite a bit of discussion. People are concerned because I know that there are a lot of people within the kind of indie scene that are very critical of Adobe's business practices and the things that they've done in the past. And so people are concerned about the future of Allegorithmic, of course. And so we can see here that what Allegorithmic is saying is hopefully to lead us to a little bit of comfort as we figure out what's going to be happening because of this merger. So we can see here that you'll be seeing Substance and Adobe's tools evolve together within the coming months and year, but the very same teams are still behind your favorite products. So what that tells us is that hopefully the teams that are currently in place over at Allegorithmic or at Substance or working on Substance will be the same. And we will hopefully still be seeing the same consistent updates that have been coming out of Allegorithmic despite the company being owned by Adobe. Now, I've heard that Adobe is looking at taking some of the technologies that are inside of Substance and integrating them into their Creative Cloud platform as well. So whether or not that means that Substance will now be included in Creative Cloud, or if we're going to be seeing all new Adobe applications that are using technology from Substance being rolled into the Creative Cloud, or whether or not they'll make their way into Photoshop or other pre-existing applications, we simply don't know. So we're going to have to keep an eye out and see what happens with that. Now, in terms of licensing, because this is a topic that's really important to a lot of indie developers or individual 3D designers, for example, they're saying that when it comes to licensing, nothing changes for now. And that for now should be something that we look at with a bit of caution because we know that they are planning on changing things. A lot of people are freaking out about the idea that Adobe is going to raise the cost of the license per month, or that they're going to change the licensing scheme altogether. And they're saying, however, they're saying that our current licenses will continue running and getting updates, but as they join the Adobe family, that they're going to unveil new and more quote unquote flexible subscription offers in the coming months. Now, to me, having read this, it looks like a lot of marketing jargon that tries to get people excited about the changes, but in actuality, we should reserve our judgment until we see exactly what happens. This could be something that might benefit the indie game development scene or the 3D designer scene, and it could also be something that would possibly, unfortunately, harm it. Until they roll out those changes or those updates, there's simply no way of knowing, but I know that a lot of people are rightfully concerned. Now, that said, I do have some other news that is hopefully a little more hopeful. We have Toon Roosendahl here, and again, I apologize if I pronounce this incorrectly. However, he is the chairman at the Blender Foundation, which graciously provides Blender free and open source to us. And he tweeted this morning saying, or earlier today saying that obviously we are already eyeing much better procedural tools in Blender for a while. We know how to do it, but we need to wrap up 2.80 targets first. Just help us doubling the fund. Deal? And then he, of course, has a link to fund.blender.org. So if you're someone with a little extra cash and would like to put that money towards funding the Blender development team and getting Blender 2.80 out of beta and into the release candidate and the final release version of Blender 2.80 and then onto some procedural texturing tools, that would be the place to do it. And then, of course, he's updated us below saying, in case you wonder, Substance has been absorbed by Adobe. So it is definitely a hot topic right now. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's aware about it. So for those of you stragglers who aren't, be forewarned and keep an eye on your licensing as well as the changes that are occurring there. And then if you peek ahead to one of the tweets below, you'll see that there is actually some buzz about alternatives to Substance in Blender, which brings us to ArmorPaint. ArmorPaint has been around for a little while. I have not had the opportunity to use it personally. but it looks promising. It seems to be somewhat in the early states of its development, but hopefully it will grow and develop as time goes on. So what is ArmorPaint? Well, it's a physically based rendering, texture painting, node-based workflow that I believe exists within Blender itself that allows you to create physically based textures and materials that can be used for real-time or PBR capable engines. So we have the real-time engines as well as non-real-time engines, and then everything is supposed to be physically based now. So apparently this software is a good texturing companion for Armory, Unreal, Unity, and Cycles, as well as probably other sorts of applications as well. It is GPU accelerated, and it does work with the Armory engine. I believe it's the same team or a similar related team that's working on it. So that's something definitely to keep your eye on in the future in terms of texturing workflows that we can turn to in the absence of substance if something should happen. Now, that said, I would like to give a mention to Simon Thommes. Now, I apologize again if I pronounce that wrong, but he has released his procedural snakeskin material that is 100 procedural in Blender. It works in 2.79, I think. Don't quote me on that. I would have to check it. But I know that it works with Cycles and Eevee because I've tried that much of it that far. So here's a link to his social media. You can get the material at his Gumroad for free. He's been gracious enough to provide that for free. Now, it's funny because I actually had said to Simon in a tweet that I would be happy to look at this material and break it down in a tutorial if I could make sense of it. He said that it wasn't necessary and that the setup might be a bit complicated, and I will show you a look at that in a minute. I just want to show off some of his renders here, which are very nice looking renders. But he was right, it is rather complicated. So I'll give you a quick look at it. If this is something that you'd like me to make a tutorial of in the future, by all means, feel free to leave a comment down below. But as we can see here inside of Blender, we have the snakeskin material, and it looks really nice. It's really well put together. However, the node setup is, of course, like Simon said, really, really complicated. I can give you a really brief look at that here, and you can see here there's all sorts of procedural magic going on under the hood that I personally don't understand just by looking at it. It would take quite a bit of time to unpack. So again, if you're interested in a tutorial about that, feel free to leave a comment down below, and I will do my best to get around to it. Now, with that said, there are some really quick edits that you can make to this material. So I'll show you that here we have color changing. So I'll just change the color on this really quickly. So there you go. You can see that this is how you would go about changing the colors. There's probably a way to pipe other materials in that to get more global control. And then the coolest part about this, I think, is this custom scale shape here, which we can go into this group node. Relatively simple. However, the cool thing is here with the RGB curves, if I change this shape of the curve, you can see that it actually conforms to the shape of the curve with the actual scales themselves. So again, some really cool procedural workflow magic from Simon there. Definitely feel free to check out this material. If you'd like me to go more in depth on it, I can do a tutorial on that as well for possible applications, but I figured I would show this off. So I hope this has been useful for all of you. All the news, a sad day that Adobe has acquired Allegorithmic for many of us. Kind of alarming, but keep an eye out for the future to see what happens. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more news and tutorials, and I hope you have a great day. Take care.